All right, welcome in everyone. We're diving deep today.
Deep, deep.
Yeah, into Genesis,
The 7 days.
the 7 days of creation. Yeah, exactly. Genesis 1, 1 through 2, 3.
Absolutely.
So, our listeners want to get right to the heart of it,
Yeah, yeah.
cut to the chase. So,
No messing around.
yeah, so we're going to unpack, why the Bible uses this 7-day structure to describe creation.
Right. And I think, what's really fascinating is that this structure, it seems so simple on the surface,
Right.
but there's a lot of depth to it. There's
Yeah.
so much intentionality packed into this framework.
Totally. Yeah, it's not just like, day 1 this happened, day 2 this happened.
And deliberate progression.
Yeah. So, what are some key observations about how these 6 days unfold? Like, when you read through it, what jumps out?
Well, you see a clear order, right? So first you have light appearing,
Okay. Light. Yeah.
then the separation of the waters in the sky.
Okay. Okay.
Then on day 3, you get land, seas, and vegetation.
Okay. So it's kind of like building blocks. Like
Okay.
each one sort of sets up the next.
Yeah, each day prepares for the next.
Okay.
And it goes on, right?
Mhm.
You get the celestial bodies on day 4,
Okay.
then sea creatures and birds on day 5,
Okay.
and finally, land animals and humans on day 6.
Wow. So it really is like it's culminating, right? It's like leading up
That's
to.
exactly, yeah.
Okay. So, what does this step-by-step progression suggest? Like, why do you think it's presented this way?
Well, I think it really points to this idea of intentional design and God's complete control over the creative process.
Okay. So it's like, it's not just random. There's a plan here.
Absolutely, there's a plan and an order to it.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And it culminates in the creation of humanity, which is, kind of the
Yeah,
peak
yeah.
of creation.
Okay, that's really interesting. And then, there's this number 7, right? It pops up all over the Bible.
Yeah, it's a significant number for sure.
So, what's the significance here, like in this creation story?
Well, the number 7, it's deeply associated with covenant and completeness, right?
Hmm.
So in the context of creation, it signifies that creation is finished and that it's perfect.
Okay, so it's kind of like wrapping it up. It's like a bow on the whole thing.
Exactly. It's a symbol of completion.
Okay, and then that leads into the 7th day, right? The day of rest.
Right, right.
Which, again, it's more than just like God taking a nap, right?
Exactly. It's not about God being tired.
Yeah.
If you look in Genesis 1:31, it talks about how God was satisfied with his creation.
Right. Yeah, he looked at it and he said, "It is good."
It was very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So his rest is about contentment. It's about satisfaction with what he's created.
Okay, that's a really important point, I think, because it's not like he was exhausted from, making all this stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
It was more like he took a step back and he was like, this is perfect.
Yeah, it's like he was appreciating his own work.
Right, right.
And this actually establishes a really important pattern, this pattern of work and rest.
Okay, so what does that mean for us? Like, why is that significant?
Well, we're created in God's image,
Right.
as Genesis 1:27 tells us.
Yeah.
So this rhythm of work and rest that God establishes, it's a model for us too.
Okay, so it's like we're supposed to, work hard, but also take time to rest and recharge and.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance.
Okay, that makes sense. And of course, that ties into the whole idea of the Sabbath, right? Which we see later on.
Right. The Sabbath becomes the formal expression of this principle.
Okay, so it's like this creation story is kind of like the foundation for that.
Exactly, yeah.
That's really interesting. And then the whole, the structure itself, the 7-day framework,
Right.
it feels very deliberate.
It is, yeah.
Like, what do we understand from that? Like, why present it this way?
Well, I think the 7-day framework acts as a powerful literary tool.
Okay.
Like, it gives this really clear and memorable structure to the creation account.
Okay, so it's like it's easier to understand and remember when it's broken down this way.
Exactly. It's like a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Okay, and that's important for passing it down, right? Like generation to generation.
Absolutely. It makes it easier to remember and to teach.
Okay, and I know there's a lot of debate about whether these were literal 24-hour days or not.
Right. There's a lot of different interpretations.
Yeah, so how do we approach that?
Well, I think the main point of the narrative isn't really about the literal timing.
Okay.
It's more about conveying the truth of God's purposeful creation and his relationship with the world.
Okay, so it's more about the message than the specific timeline.
Exactly. It's about understanding the theological truths that the story is trying to communicate.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the structure itself, the 7-day structure, it's not just about the act of creation.
Right.
It's also about establishing a divine order.
Okay.
A rhythm for the world, a rhythm for life.
Okay, and that's had a huge impact, right, on Judeo-Christian thought.
Absolutely. It's a foundational concept that has shaped our understanding of God's power and our place in his creation.
So to kind of summarize the 7-day structure, it highlights the order and purpose of creation, the completeness of it all, and it emphasizes God's rest as a model for us.
Yes, and it uses this really powerful narrative structure to communicate those truths.
Right, and it's interesting to think about how, this ancient concept of work and rest, like how that compares to our modern ideas about productivity.
It's a question worth pondering.
Yeah, because we live in such a, go, go, go culture, right?
Absolutely. It's all about getting things done.
Yeah, so maybe there's something we can learn from this ancient wisdom about finding that balance.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it for our listeners. Take some time to think about how this applies to your own life.
Yeah, how do you balance work and rest?
Exactly. So thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the 7 days of creation.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.
See you then.